Okay. All right. We're live here. We had some technical issues. We typically go live using an app called StreamYard. However, I won't name names. We had somebody in the company accidentally logged in to our StreamYard and changed everything, and then they got locked out and I couldn't get back in, and nobody can get back in, and StreamYard is being very slow in responding to us. So that's why we couldn't go live yesterday or today, and we finally figured out how to go live using Zoom in the Facebook group. Because typically I like StreamYard because I can go live in the Facebook group, our other Facebook group, our Facebook business page, my personal Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube all at the same time, but can't do that until they respond back to us. So we are here going live with Brian Ho. So every single week on Wednesday, we interview a client from a different industry, okay? And we break down their sales process that we've taught them, okay? And how they got to that level. And we're going to talk about how Brian, when he came in here a while ago, probably a year and a half ago, I can't remember the exact story, was already doing well, making 10, 12 grand a month. And then he started acquiring more advanced skills and more advanced tonality, more advanced questions. And now for the past 7 or 8 months in a row has made over 60,000 a month in commissions. And that's because he's acquired more advanced skills. So Brian, actually, let's do this, because I'm going to have Brian throw out some golden nuggets here for about 30 minutes as well. But let's do this first. If you are brand new to the Facebook group and you're like, who in the hell is this guy coming live? I joined some random Facebook group. I don't know what's going on. My name is Jeremy Miner. I'm the founder of Seventh Level. Now, we're a sales training organization that trains salespeople like Brian and like you watching me. So we train sales professionals like you. We train sales executives like you. We train sales management like you, sales leadership like you, coaches like you, consultants like you, business owners like you. And we help you and your teams transform the way you sell by learning specific skilled questions and techniques. Some of those Brian's going to show you today that work with human behavior rather than work against it. Now, that's a big difference. What techniques work with human behavior? What questions do you ask now that actually work with human behavior compared to questions you might have been taught in the past, or how your tone sounds that is actually triggering sales resistance? So we have to learn the difference if we want to make 2 or 3 times more than what we are now, even if we're already doing good like Brian was a year and a half ago, because making 120, 140,000 a year is nothing to sneeze at, but making over 700,000 a year, well, gives you a lot more opportunities in life, that's for sure, which Brian can probably test you. Now, we're going to talk about neuro-emotional persuasion questions. It stands for NEPQ. And we have to teach you the right tone, because there's certain aspects of the conversation, as Brian now knows, that requires more of a curious tone. Like, can you walk me through? That's a curious tone, okay? There's other parts of the sales conversation and certain questions that you have to learn how to ask that require more of a skeptical or challenging tone. Right? What did I just do there? And then there's other parts of the conversation, other questions you have to ask where you lean in and it's more of a concern tone, a tone that shows more empathy. Well, how do you know when to use what tone? Okay, well, that's what we train you in our virtual training platforms in Advanced Inner Circle and Advanced NEPQ 3.0, okay? Because we have to trigger them to let their guard down. Otherwise, it's over if they stay service level, okay? Now, if you want to start getting the same results like Brian has and like tens of thousands of our clients are doing right now every single day in your industry, watching us right here, I can assure you we are training people in your industry and companies in your industry that are making 2, 3, 5 times more than you are. And it's not because they have really cool hair like Brian, right? They even drink water. I've heard they eat food too. Rumor has it. They even wear clothes and they put on shoes in the morning. Some of them brush their teeth, okay? The only difference between them and you right now is they've acquired more advanced sales ability than you. They've learned that from our training. Okay. So if you want to start making your first 10 grand a month in commissions with what you're doing now, if you're wanting to make your first 15 or 20 grand a month in commissions in your industry, like every month, not just 1 month and then you're down. Let's say you're a bigger thinker. How do you acquire the skills to get up to 25 and 30 grand a month in commissions, or 40 or 50, or like Brian, who's now over 60 grand a month in commissions every single month? If you want to acquire those skills, thank you, sir, then message me right now in the Facebook group. So if that's you, message me right now in the Facebook group. If you can't figure that out, comment in the comment sections, post hashtag NEPQ or message me directly. And we'll message you back some different training options if you want to acquire those skills and learn how to sell there. Brian, let's go ahead and start off with you because nobody cares about me, apparently. I think they only care about themselves for some reason. I don't know. They're just human beings.
Yeah.
All right. So Brian, tell us, first question I always ask anybody is, were you born out of your mother's womb with advanced questioning skills?
No, sir.
Okay. So you're telling me you weren't born that way. Were you born with advanced tonality skills?
No.
No, your mom and dad weren't professional, like tonality people? Okay. And were you, like, the DNA just transferred somehow? Were you born out of your mother's womb with like advanced objection handling and prevention skills?
Nope.
Okay. So you're suggesting you had to acquire those skills like regular mortal beings like us?
For sure.
Okay. All right. So let's start off. So let's walk us back before we give them some golden nuggets, which you assured me that you would do, certain questions to ask and how. How long have you been in sales? Like, when did you get started?
Back in 2006, I went, I did door-to-door sales for a landscaping company. Okay. And so I would sell the service and then perform the service and then move on to the next house.
Good gosh. All right. So you got into door-to-door. And what do you sell now?
Right now, Amazon, Shopify, real estate automation. So e-com.
Okay. So your industry, because we train thousands in your industry as well, is you help people, one or two prospects. You have prospects that might have a business, like running an Amazon business or real estate business, but they don't know how to scale it, right? Maybe they're full-time or part-time. They just don't have the right skills or tools to scale it. Or maybe they have a job and they want to start their own business, but they don't know what they're doing to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you solve some big problems. Now, let's go back to before you got into NEPQ, because a lot of people would say, man, Brian, you were really successful making 10 to 12 grand a month. Why on earth would you ever want to go through sales training if you're already doing that well?
Yes. So one of my biggest issues was my calls would go like an hour and a half long.
Okay.
And I would do like 6-7 calls a day. So it would drain me, even if I had like 2 or 3 sales, which is great, I would still come down to dinner in a bad mood.
Okay. So you're working like 10 to 12 hours a day, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So 10 to 12 hours a day, 10 to 12 grand a month, inflation, you're not like retiring anytime soon, right? So what caused you, and you're in like more of a one call close type of B2C sale, I'm assuming, because right when your calls are that long. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes more sense. Okay. So how did you even find us? Let's just start there.
My wife was doing some coaching.
Okay.
And then there was a live event, and then Eli Wallace showed up. Okay. Right. And I'm like, oh, I like this guy,
Okay.
Great. And then he started talking about his coach, which he mentioned, one of them was you. So then I started listening to some podcasts, and the rest is history.
And so you got in the training. So I think you started maybe in the 2.0 version, kind of worked your way up 3.0 version.
Yes.
Now, when you got into advanced inner circle and you started learning like advanced tonality, the advanced questioning, started, your sales structure, it took you a while to catch on to it, if I remember right.
Yeah. Even 2.0, I actually dropped in my results because I was trying to learn everything at once and apply everything at once.
You tried to change everything over at once without knowing anything.
Yeah. It was horrible.
You don't want to do that. You want to implement it slower. You want to take a few questions that we're training you in the portal with the tone and start implementing into your process. And then gradually, as you get better at that, you switch completely over. Now, once you started learning how to do that, and you switched over after you gradually started going into it, tell us how your prospects started to respond to you compared to how you used to sell.
They really started opening up, and they saw me as more of like a trusted advisor. Okay. Someone who wasn't there to just like, make them do something or sell something to them, something like that.
Okay. So you started to see a shift in how they reacted to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to close the sale, because we have to follow the whole process, not just open them up. We're not saying it then like, well, do you want to do it? Like, that's not going to work, right? Or get back to me if you're interested. That's not going to work.
No.
So let's give them some examples. So
sure.
Let's talk about connecting questions. Now, before you learned NEPQ, how did you, because your leads are more inbound leads with what you do now, right?
Right.
Okay.
Mostly.
So they schedule on your calendar, you show up to the sales call. Are they all just like, okay, well, just tell me what it is, I'm ready to buy? Are they all that easy?
No.
Okay. All right. So let's go through that. So what did you used to say at the beginning of the call before NEPQ? You got to tell us. Go back in time.
Man, that's a tough one. It was like over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was be something along the lines of, yeah, so you booked this call today, and at the end of it, you're either gonna make a decision, yes or no, and then we're just here to see if it's gonna be a good fit,
Okay, so you used that's called a frame.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you used a frame that's, like at the end of the call, if you feel it's a good fit for you and we feel you're a good fit for a company, then I can show you, how to move forward. Is that fair? Right?
Yeah.
Now that's how a lot of companies train people to do. So they don't get the, I want to think it over objection, but how often did you get the, I want to think it over objection regardless?
I mean, a lot.
Okay. You still got it. So it doesn't work. In your mind, why does that type of frame not work?
Well, it kind of creates the pressure right from the beginning, like the sales resistance. Because like, they're already told, like 2 seconds into the call, they're already told that they got to make a decision on something.
Yeah. So all that does is the prospect, most of the time, unless they're a lay down sale, which is maybe 5% of your leads, most of the time they already feel that sales pressure because you have no trust or credibility early in the conversation when you're saying that type of frame. So what most people do, like you would do if you guys heard it, is they emotionally shut down and they stay surface level because they know the questions you're asking, you're trying to pry out certain information that are going to force them to want to buy at the end. And people don't want to be forced. They don't want to be pressured, right? So it causes them to emotionally shut down. They stay surface level. Even the very best questions you ask, they give you a little fluffy answers. They don't really answer it. They stay surface. Maybe they give you 3 or 4 word answers. And then at the end, when you try to close, I want to think it over. I need to talk to my spouse in your industry. I need to keep doing more research. Now, how do we help you change that frame to where they opened up and didn't feel pressure?
Well, I mean, one of the things I say on my call now is like, okay, so, it looks like you booked a call in our calendar. On this call, we're just going to go over a little bit of your background together, talk about like what you've done, what you're currently doing, and what you might be looking for. Because, sometimes we get on these calls and there's just really nothing we can do for some people. You know what I mean by that, right? What
do they do?
And then they just relax more because I don't know if I can help them, and that's the truth.
Yeah. And here's another way to frame that works even well as well. Yeah. So the first, this call, it's, the first part of this call, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to find out more about kind of, what you're doing for a living now and kind of what that looks like and, what you're making from that compared to where you're wanting to be. Just so we can kind of see what the gap looks like to see if we can help. And then towards the end of the call, if you feel that it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help you? Yeah, that would help me. See how I neutralize that. Now I want to show everybody what I did there because it's very important that you watch my hands. Okay. Now, even if you're on the phone doing this, you still do it because your hand movements, your body language affects your tone. Okay. But especially if they can see, if they're on Zoom, Skype, if you're in their home, if you're in their office, if you're selling B2B, it just depends on what you're doing. Okay. Now, the first part of this call, it's pretty basic. Now, why would I downplay that? Why wouldn't I say, oh, this call is going to be great. We're going to find out What's the difference?
Well, I mean, that's what everyone else does, right? To hype it up, and it just creates more sales resistance. So
I want to downplay because my job first is to get them to let their guard down. Because if we can get them to let their guard down, then they feel more comfortable in going below the surface and telling us what's really going on. If they keep their guard up, well, they just stay surface level. That's why I do that. In the first part of this call, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to find out more about kind of, what you do for a living now. Now, I'm personalizing it to your industry. Obviously, if you sold life insurance or solar or B2B cybersecurity or B2B data services, we tweak that. This is what you'd say for yours. First part of this call, it's pretty basic. It's really more for us to find out kind of more about what you do for a living now, kind of what you're getting paid to do that compared to, where you're wanting to be financially as far as a business, just to see what that gap looks like. See what I just did? Mm-hmm. Here's where you are compared to where you are trying to get to, want to be, just to see what that gap looks like. See, I'm already putting visually in their brain, I'm seeding that there's already a gap. That's how I'm doing that. And that's really the third connecting question. There's a couple connecting questions you asked before this. You don't just jump into a call like that. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Just to see what that gap looks like. And then towards the end of the call, if you feel that it might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Would that help you? Notice how I put on them. Towards the end of the call, if you feel that it might be. Now, might be is a neutral word. If I relanguage it and said, now towards the end of the call, if you feel this is a good fit for you and it's a good fit for us, then I'm going to show you the next steps. A lot of people will be like, well, I didn't say I'm going to decide today. You'll automatically trigger that, especially with A-type personalities. But because I use the words might be what you're looking for, we can talk about possible next steps. Might be impossible are neutral words. You're never going to have somebody that says, no, I'm not going to talk about possible next steps. Like they can't say that because it doesn't trigger any resistance, right? Mm-hmm. There you go.
Exactly.
You learned something new today. Did you just touch that one? Little angle there. All right. So that's an example of a connecting question that's actually called a status frame. We teach all that in our virtual training platform, especially in Advanced Inner Circle and 3.0. There's usually another connecting question I'll ask after that. Situation questions. Before you learned NEPQ, how did you help them and yourself find out what their real situation was? What did you used to do? Do you remember?
I used to sell a health program. So I would be asking them, okay, so what's really been going on, with your health? And then they would either tell me, oh, diabetes, that kind of thing. So just ask them how long it's been going for.
Okay. Okay, so you asked a couple of things. What would you learn now how to ask? Because situation questions, they're not just for you to find out what the real situation is. They're also for your prospect. Because most of your prospects don't understand what the real situation is or the depth of it when you first start talking to them, right? So situation questions help them find out what their real situation is, because you can't build a gap to where they want to go and what's preventing them from being there if you first can't help them see where the real situation is, right? That's why situation questions are important. So what do you do now? Give us an example.
Yeah. So a very basic one is like, oh, okay, well, I was just curious, like, what do you do for work right now?
Yeah, because that would imply for what you're selling, because it's almost like you're recruiting them from their job into starting a business. Like it's almost like a recruitment thing in an ask. Okay, so walk me through. What do you do for a living? What do you do for work? Oh, you're a firefighter. How long have you been doing that type of work for? Oh, I see. Okay. And I didn't even ask you, are you on your own, or do you have like a family you're taking care of? Oh, you do. What does she do for a living? Oh, okay. So she works at a CPA firm. Okay. So that would be some of the basic situation questions for your industry, right?
Right.
Now for each industry, it's going to be different. We train you guys how to do that in the virtual training and everything. Okay. Problem awareness questions. Now, problem awareness questions help you, and most importantly, the prospect, find out what their real problems are. And not just the real problems, but what caused the problem, the root cause, and how is it affecting them. So there's about 4 or 5 you ask for your industry, but give us maybe one problem awareness question you ask with the right tone and how people react to that.
So like you being a firefighter, do you like what you're doing for work.
And why do you ask it like that with that tone? Tell everybody why you use that tone rather than saying, so you've been a firefighter for 5 years. Do you like it? Well, it's a lot different. Why did you use that tone?
So we're just a bit skeptical there, like just a bit skeptical. We're slowing it down because it just helps them like really think about it.
It causes them to think deeper when you have that verbal pause, right? So you lean in. For your industry, that's the first problem awareness question you ask. Now, for other industries, it's worded a bit differently. Okay. So you've been at this job the last 5 years. Do you like what you're doing for a living? Now, it's a skeptical tone, yet it's a curious tone. It's kind of a combination of that. You don't want to be overly skeptical because we don't have as much trust and credibility 3-4 minutes in.
Not yet.
For your industry. So it's kind of a curious, somewhat skeptical tone. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Now, they could say, yeah, I really love it. Or they could say, oh, no, I don't. It sucks because of this. Or they could be like, well, I mean, I do, but... And depending on what they say, we show you what questions to ask next, depending on one of those 3 avenues they go to. Now, I'll give you a different example that is a completely different industry. Let's say if you sold, I'm just going to throw something. Let's say if you sold solar as an example, okay? And in your situation questions, you're finding about their rate hikes that their utility company has been forcing them to pay. Because, rates have gone up 10, 15, depends on what state they live in, but sometimes they more than doubled in the last 2 years. A bill in California more than doubled in the last 2 years. So once you help them find out what their rate hikes are by looking at their bill, you lean in and say, so do you want to have to keep paying those rate hikes if you didn't have to? See, that's reworded, but a problem awareness question for that industry, which is completely different than your industry, right? That's how we would do that. Okay, let's move on because there's more problem awareness questions you have to ask that. Solution awareness question. Now that you've helped them see that they have some problems that maybe they didn't really understand they had before, the depth of the problem, we then have to move into our solution awareness questions. And let's talk about the second half of solution awareness questions, not even the first half, but the second half is we're asking certain questions that help them see what their future is going to look like once all these newfound problems are actually solved. Now, what's a good solution awareness question you've learned to ask that does that?
So let's say we were to come in and, help you make a consistent, reliable $2,000 to $4,000 a month for you and your family. Like, what would you actually do with that money coming in? Now,
and you're saying $2,000 to $4,000 a month because maybe that's what they said they wanted to make from a business, right? So you're just repeating back what they said they wanted. If it's 10,000, that's what you're saying. If it's 5,000 for your industry. Now, why do you ask them? Okay, so let's say that we're able to come in and we're able to help get you to this extra $4,000 a month, like we do with their other clients. At that point, what would you do with the extra money coming in? Typically, what do they say?
Well, they would say, oh, well, I would travel more, or like I would invest more,
And then you clarify and probe off all that, why that's important. And then you lean in and you're probably, okay, so being able to travel, you being able to actually do that, what would that do for you personally? And why would I pause there? Why would I have that verbal pause there?
Just to really get them to go deeper and think about that. Because if you ask it too quickly, it's just going to create a knee-jerk reaction. Like, oh, it'd be great. It'd just be good, But notice so I want to notice what Brian did with those 2 different questions. Now, there's other solution awareness questions you have to ask before that to set that up. You can't just walk in there and ask it and expect that to just blow up and be all you want. And there's usually another question after that. But when he said, what would you do with the extra money coming in? They're going to give you a logical answer. I'd buy a new car. I'd pay off debt. I'd go to Greece. I'd pay for my granddaughter's college. See, those are logical answers. But as we all know, do human beings make buying decisions off logic or emotion? 100% emotion. So when they tell you the logical answers, you then
Lower your voice and lean and say, you've been able to do that. What would that do for you personally? That brings out the emotion. That's more of an emotional question that's going to give you an emotional answer. And typically, what do they do when you ask that way?
They give me the real answer. You know, they say things like, "Oh, well, that would mean the world to me." You know, to be able to do that finally. You know, that would take away all the stress. All that kind of stuff comes up.
Then you probe off the stress and what that's doing. Okay, we don't have time to go through that. Solution awareness. So consequence questions. So now that we've got them to see what their future is going to look like once all these newfound problems are solved from your question ability, we then want to rip it away from them with a consequence question that causes them to defend themselves on why they need to change now. Why are consequence questions so powerful?
I mean, it just really helps them see what happens if they don't do anything different, you know, and they just stay where they are.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so give us an example. What's a good consequence question you use, and why do you use it?
So what happens if like nothing changes and you don't do anything different about this, and you continue to have to stay in the same job for the next year, 2 years, 5 years, and you don't get to travel with your family and spend quality time with them? Like what happens then?
And how do they react to that most of the time?
They're like, oh no, I don't want that. Please don't.
Okay, so time to make a change possibly. Okay, but what happens? No, this is important. I want everybody to watch, because in a consequence question, you start off asking it skeptical, and then towards the end, your tone changes to more of a concern tone. Okay, so I want everybody to hear what I do here. Okay, but what happens if you don't do anything about this, and then you end up staying in the same job, same income the next, 5, 10, 15 years? I mean, what happens then? Notice how my voice went from skeptical and challenging to the last 7 or 8 seconds, more concerned for them. Why would I do that?
Well, I mean, it just brings up concern in them, like
what causes them to feel like I'm concerned.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
And when they feel like you're concerned for them, that builds what?
More trust.
Massive trust. And do people buy off people who they feel they trust to get them the best result and understand their unique situation the most?
Yes.
Yeah, 100% of the time. Of course, there's a lot more to that for sure. All right, we won't have time to go through your presentation. How is your presentation different now than it was before NEPQ, though? Maybe give us an overview.
It's just a lot more clear.
Yeah.
It's just broken down into sections. It takes pieces of what they said, and then we weave it into, the presentation.
Yeah, you're repeating back their problems.
Yeah.
And the consequences of the problems, and then how your specific, what you sell, your solution solves those problems, and then what that means to them.
Exactly.
And all that does is emotionally connect the dots to the prospect. Whereas most salespeople show a big slideshow about all the products and the features and the benefits, and then at the end, the prospect's just zoned out.
Right.
Now you're emotionally connected with the prospect, with the end result. Okay, how do you close the sale? What do you do now? Do you say, do you want the red one or the blue one, or do you say, should we get started now or tomorrow? Like, what have you learned how to do?
So one thing I really love is so at this moment I don't really have too much else to go over with you. What I can do is I could just send you the agreement, and then you can just look it over. Would that be appropriate, or how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, I don't really have it. So do you feel like this could be the answer for you? I mean, you're obviously going to say that first, right? There's some commitment questions you ask first, like, yeah, I do, or I do, but, and they'll tell you their concern, right? Let's say they're like, yeah, I really do, but I just don't have the money for it. Well, the money aside, why do you feel like it is though? Well, I like this, I like that. And then you help them overcome the money concern, where they can go get the funding, right? That you've learned in the training course.
Right.
In the training. And then, okay, well, I don't really have anything else to go over with you. Looks like we covered the basis of what you're looking for. Really, the next step would be is we'd make some type of arrangement for your XYZ purchase. You can do a credit or debit card. At that point, we'll have you authorize the agreement that gives our team permission to start building out your stores, your websites, blah, 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 blah. So you can, start getting to and repeat the end result. Would that be appropriate, or how do you want to proceed from here? Right? That question. Okay. All right, Brian, thanks for having you on. I actually had you on the podcast a week or two ago, but I'm like, I want to interview him a different way and pull out some different information from him on this one. So thanks for coming back on again, had you in here in the studio. Any last words of advice you would give a new salesperson watching this today, or even like a vet that maybe is already doing well, like you used to be?
Yeah, like my main thing is, if you're totally cool with exactly the results that you have, no problem, just kind of stay there. But if you're kind of one of these people that want to grow and want to make more money, perhaps, so you can have more options, definitely it's just wise to invest, to get the right skills so that you can be around even that level of people, so that we can bounce ideas off that way. So I would highly encourage always to go for it and invest, rather than just kind of stay where you are, unless you're cool. Unless you're cool with it.
Just like my friend Brad Lee says, is training something you did, or is training something that you do? Well, if you want to be a top 1% earning salesperson and start making $200,000 a year in your industry, or $300,000, or get up to like Brian and thousands of our clients and start making $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 plus, then if you keep saying the same things you are now with the same tone and asking the same questions you are now, what result can you pretty much guarantee yourself? The same one you have now. So if you want to double or triple your income, you have to double or triple your sales ability. Unless you want to work 16 to 24 hours a day, it's probably not going to happen, right? All right. So Brian, thanks for being on here. Now, some of you have been hitting me up. I've been here noticing, just if you want to start learning some of these skills, I mean, Brian just gave you a few nibbles right there. I mean, that's just basic stuff. Imagine a puzzle that's like 110,562 pieces. What Brian just gave you, what we give you in the reels, and some of the stuff, little nibbles we give out in the Facebook group, that's about 3 pieces of that puzzle. You're probably not going to quadruple your income with a few pieces. You have to have all the pieces, right? So if you want to acquire those skills like Brian and thousands of other reps have, tens of thousands now at this point, then message me directly right now. So if you're in the Facebook group here, message me directly right now. If you can't figure out how to message me directly right now because you're an old man like me and you don't know social media that well, then in the comments, post hashtag NEPQ, and we'll message you some different options so you can learn how to sell in your industry if you want to sell far more effectively, which leads to what? Making more money. And just like I saw Brian post a picture there of Stanley, you can buy really expensive pajamas and go to really, really high-end 5-star resorts.
My wife would like that comment.
Those looks like some really expensive pajamas you guys had on that picture, man.
They are. One more thing. My calls, they have very little objections at the end compared to what I usually had.
Yeah.
And so,
why do you think that is now?
Well, because all we're doing is like, we're just not creating those like the sales resistance so that we can then have to go overcome it in the end. So it's like just dealing with the objections as they come up, or just the concerns. So I don't really have that many objections at the end.
Well, it's because you've learned how to prevent objections by the questions you ask that build a gap that creates urgency in the prospect's mind that they feel like they have to change. Without that gap, they don't feel the urgency, right? So that means the lower the gap, the more objections they have, because they don't feel any urgency. They don't feel a need to change.
Right.
So if they don't feel an urgency or need, guess what you're going to get? Objections, sales resistance.
Yeah, because most people, they get on the call to try to actually sell because they need to pay their rent or their car payment, right? Yeah. But we're actually here for them. let's see if we can help.
Yeah, it's objection prevention. We teach all that in the virtual training and group training, especially. Yeah. All right, Brian, thanks for being on here. Well done. We'll see everybody soon. Just message me directly right now, and we'll message you some training options for your industry if you want to make that type of income that Brian and our clients are. Many of them who are in the same industry watching us today. You watching me and Brian right here. We are already training people in your industry. We train 158 different industries at this point, including yours, watching me right now. Okay, Brian, get out of here. I got to go. We'll see everybody soon. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here, right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below. Join us, and we're going to help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.